Alright, so who here has watched the Maury show? Yeah, a lot of you, okay. So I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with the lie detector test, also known as the polygraph test. Today, I'm going to break the news and share that polygraph tests fail to accurately detect lies. One of the facts is due to the lack of specific pattern of physiological reactions that's unique to deception, which meaning that polygraph tests measure nervousness or excitement rather than lies. It monitors bodily states such as changes in heart rate, blood pressure, pulse rate, breathing patterns, and increase in respiration. Although the theory behind polygraph testing assumes that changes in these phases indicates perception, psychologist Leonard Sachs, professor and polygraph researcher at Rutgers University, states that because of the nature of deception, there's no good way to validate the test for making judgments about critical behavior. There's no unique physiological reaction for deception. ACLU had also wrote in a briefing paper from 1996 that despite the claims of lie detector examiners, there is no machine that can detect lies with a degree of accuracy. A lie detector does not measure truth-telling. It measures changes in blood pressure, breath rate, the perspiration rate, but those physiological changes can also be triggered by emotions such as anger, sadness, embarrassment, and fear. Dr. Kin, who conducted numerous studies, concluded that these tests are not appreciably more accurate than tossing a coin. The lie control test offers 64% to 72% accuracy against 50% chance expectancy. We also need to consider that individuals have different physiological reactions to different situations. Some individuals can be more nervous answering a question honestly, and a dishonest person may have no nervousness at all, but lying. DePaulo and co-author Wendy Morris, a psychology graduate student at the University of Virginia, conducted several experiments of the possible predictions or predictors of the deception. According to them, only when liars are more highly motivated, when the stakes are higher, do they seem unusually still and make notably less high-protected listeners. So there's a possibility if the stakes are high, a dishonest person will find a way to control their physiological reaction, causing an invalid result for the test. It's also possible that a liar can lie so much where they start believing that they're telling the truth. In the book, A Tremor in the Blood, it uses of the lie detector. It says, more troubling are the tendencies of truthful subjects to fail tests about half the time. Given the polygraph's premise that honest people have nothing to fear from the test, there is a premise of a perverse twist in Dr. Lycan's discovery that the only person almost guaranteed to pass is the psychopathic liar. Polygraph research has failed to separate placebo-like effects, meaning that an individual's belief about the test can be really strong. They can believe that it's completely accurate, where they get scared and they confess. The confession during the polygraph test does not determine the accuracy of deception, but rather it scares the subject into telling the truth. The other reason a polygraph test fails to accurately detect lies is because there are countermeasures that can be taken to the polygraph test. Physical movements, physiological interventions, meaning manipulating subject's belief about the test. We've seen this used as an example, or it's been shown in one of the Ocean's 12 or Ocean's 13, I can't remember, where the guy has the nail in his shoe to kind of, deceive the test. But there is an actual person named Aldrich Ames, a double agent for the Soviet Union, who is actually known to pass 2 of the polygraph tests. There's also the use of drugs that alter arousal patterns. Another last fact of why there doesn't fail to detect accurate. Several factors influence the test validity, causing insufficient results. One of them is the environment can cause, insufficient validity, or the examiner could cause inaccurate results. For instance, if the examiner gives off a negative vibe or scares the person is likely to be more scared and have physiological reactions to it, which doesn't mean that they're lying. The wording of the questions that are being asked can also be confusing to the person and causing inaccurate results. All right, that's it.
All right, the main proposition's labeled pretty clearly. That part's okay, and I like the way that you kind of introduced the subject. That kind of gets us into this pretty easily. The secondary issues, though, are really problematic because I don't really think you signpost them at the beginning, and in the body of the speech, it just sounds like a whole series of bullet points of my own criticisms of the way that this is processed or what the tools are that are being measured here. I think that it needs to be a lot more clearly put together, and that you need to have an oral structure so that it'll be easier for people to see how this information builds to reach the conclusions that you're talking about. Otherwise, it just comes across as random criticisms of the polygraph and some of the things that it can or cannot do. The examples, I think, the hypothetical example, or I guess the fictional example from the Oceans movie, I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. But the Aldrich Ames example, I think, would be more useful to you if you had some sourcing on it and gave us a little bit of context on it. The statistical information that you had, and you had a quote on this too that went along with that, suggesting that it's really not much more effective than it is flipping a coin. That's perfectly fine. There's some factual data about the polygraphs, but sometimes that's not cited very clearly. Like I said, it really feels like information is running together here, and it's not very distinct. And I think you've probably got a pretty good argument in here, but it needs to be chiseled down and turned into something. Right now, it really feels like it's amorphous and a big ball of criticism instead of something that is pointed and is going to influence people to see things a particular way. And you've got a little bit of problem with your delivery because you're sick, and I'm sorry that you got stuck on a day that you're speaking when you're sick. Thank you for coming and speaking. Please don't breathe in our direction. We don't need any of that at all. And I think that's part of the problem also, because sometimes sentences just rush together and it sounds like you're reading and it's just flowing without any particular purpose, and that's another thing that undermines what probably is better information than it sounds like, because it hasn't been structured as effectively as it could be. All right, thank you very much. Let me just double check one more time that I heard people. And do you have an outline for me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not worried about the markings. I am worried about your breathing on it, though. That scares me. All right, so we heard from you and from Vanessa, Caesar, Tyler. Michael, were you here? Not here. Okay. Troy, we heard. Evelyn heard from. Okay, we had 2 people missing, so that's a lot to be missing. And we started pretty early. We should have been able